right, we're gonna do a little activity. There is actually an incentive for this activity. So the point of this game is win as much as you can. It actually has a name. It's called the win as much as you can game. Okay? Now what happens is there's you over here and there's your partner over here. Now you have two options every round of this game. You get to either choose your C card or you get to choose your D card. That's it basically. The entire game is you're choosing your C card or your D card. Now your partner also gets to choose their C card or their D card. What happens if you both play your C card? You get $3. But don't focus on your partner because it'll get confusing otherwise. Just focus on what you get. You're going to keep track, so you also need a piece of paper just to keep track of how you're doing actually. Just, third piece of paper. Yeah, you can rip a little piece of paper off. Alright. So, what's that? Yeah, you guys can share. One person can keep track of both people. Alright. If you play your C card and they play their D card, what's going to happen? You play C and they play their D card, you get -4. Aww. If you play your D card and they play their C card, what happens to you? Bonus +5. Versus if you play your D card and they play their D card, what happens? -1. Does that make sense? Just keep track of your own payoff here. So if you played C and your partner played C, it's +3. It's like a little cheat sheet right here. Does everybody understand how this works? Now, there's going to be one winner. Don't worry about the intricacies. There's going to be one winner at the end of the game. The winner of the game is the person who won as much as they can. Does that make sense? Now, I don't actually have money for you, but I do have a bar of chocolate. So make sure that your partner understands. Does everybody understand? Yes. Let's imagine you're imagining you played your C card and the partner played the C card. What do you write down on your sheet? 3. And let's say you played your D and the partner played the C. What do you get? +5. Okay, does everybody understand? Yes. Anybody not clear? Yes? You have to play one card each round. Everybody ready? Yep. Check it out. If it doesn't make sense, your partner will help you. Check it out also. You want to make sure that your choice is secret before you play. There is no discussion beforehand of what you're going to play. Does that make sense? From this moment on,
we're not allowed to talk?
From this moment on, there is no conversation about what you will or will not do. Does that make sense? Alright, on 3, you're going to choose one of your cards and go 1, 2, 3 and play it. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
We can look at the cards.
You can choose which card, but don't let the other person see. On your marks. 1, 2, 3. Alright. What you get? You get that board, so write it down. Oh, he's going to write it. Alright. Keep track. Yeah, hold on. Okay, you won a certain amount. Does that make sense? Okay, round 2 is coming up. Get ready. Ready? Same thing. Keep track of your payoff. On 3. 1, 2, 3, go. Alright, ready? Alright. Round 3 is coming up. Round 3. 1, 2, 3. About round 3 where it starts to get good. Okay, round 3. Alright. Round 4 is coming up. Get ready. Get ready. Round 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay. What are we on round 4? Get ready, round 5. Round 5 is coming up. Round 5. 1, 2, 3, play. All right, round 6 and final round. Ooh. Round 6 and final round. 1, 2, 3, play. Okay, tally it up. Count up all of your winnings and losings. All of your winnings and losings. Count it up. What do you have? Okay, you should have 6 numbers. 6 numbers. Count them all up. Take 1 number. All right. 6 numbers. Everybody's got a number? All right. Guys, who got less than 0? Who got less than 0? All right. Who got more than 0? Who got more than 0? Very nice. Who got between 0 and 10? 0 and 10. Yeah, that's about right. Who got between 10 and 20? Woo! Who got more than 20? The winner of the game! The winner of the game. Can you read off your payouts for us? Read out.
Plus 5, minus 4, plus 5, plus 5, plus 3, plus 5.
All right, very nice. Was it true?
Just play it.
All right. There you go.
Wait, count that again.
All right. So, you chose defect on everyone except for 1.
What does defect mean?
You chose D. These things have secret meanings. The D is defect and the C is cooperate. This comes from a little game theory. But what I'm most interested in right now is your emotional state. How do you guys feel right now? What is going on internal? I shouldn't be pointing right here. Yeah. Guys.
I feel neutral.
Oh, you feel neutral. Okay. Tell me someone who feels an emotional state. Yeah.
I feel frustrated and betrayed.
Yeah. Yes.
I feel like I got away with murder.
Okay, thanks. Did you feel guilt?
No.
Yeah.
I feel great. I feel amazing.
You feel good. All right. Yes.
I feel guilty.
All right. Yeah. So it's interesting how decisions that we make can impact our emotional lives. Did anyone feel at some point this feeling of anger? Like, In a sense, I set you guys up for failure. Let's just think about it for a second. How much would you have gotten if you had cooperated the entire time?
We did.
No, you didn't. You didn't cooperate. If both people had chosen C both times, what would people have gotten? 18. Who got less than 18? Yeah. How come? Why? What happened here? Yeah.
Because if you put C each time, and once the other person puts D, you get -4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the trust issue there.
It's a trust issue, right? In a sense, the idea here is most of you guys did less well than you could have because you chose an option that was devious, right? D is also for devious. You tried to win more. Does that make sense? Now, this is the world that we live in. In the world we live in, there is a lot of conflict. And some of that conflict actually leads to stuff like this. And that. And that. Right? Now, fighting exists in the world. It's part of the natural state of affairs. There's good theoretical reasons to think that conflict will exist. Everywhere that there are organisms that reproduce, there will be conflict. But what's the problem with conflict? What's the problem? I mean, it could say it's fine.
It's suboptimal.
Why is it suboptimal? Why could things be better, or rather, what's an issue with fighting? Yeah.
Both parties get hurt in some way.
Oh, yeah. So we have pictures of fighting, but we don't have pictures of what happens after. I mean, here's a poor elephant that got cut and bruised. And look, his tongue's got broken off. Tusks, poor little elephant. Here's a poor little Chuck Liddell who got bruised as well. I mean, fighting is very costly.
Oh my God.
And wait, it gets even better. So the idea here is that fighting is a costly behavior. I'm an evolutionary psychologist. So when I say cost, what I mean specifically is that it has the chance of decreasing the reproductive success of an organism. If you get hurt and you have to spend time, caring for your wounds, or if you die, for example, then you're not going to make that many babies. Does that make sense? So, in looking at the human mind, we should think that there should be something in there that will help people predict who's going to win the fight. I mean, should these dogs fight each other?
No.
Why not?
There's no way.
What's necessary in a sense for these dogs not to fight?
They're not equal.
They're not equal. What needs to happen?
Competition.
So, let's say there's a hamburger right here, and the dog is looking at the hamburger, and this dog is looking at the hamburger. What do you think is going to happen? Will this dog eat it?
No.
Why not?
They're going to push out the way.
All right. And so, what's the necessary precondition for fighting to be avoided?
No.
Come on, guys. My
No.
psychology people out there. Like, what do they need?
Enough resources?
No, they need to know that who would win.
They need a brain. They need a brain to be able to calculate something. Does that make sense? Rocks don't fight, don't do anything, really, right? Rocks don't move that much because they don't have brains. But those things that have brains that can predict the future can act in ways that make sense. Does that make sense? All right. Great. So they should avoid behaviors where the costs of the fight are greater than the benefits that are going to get the fight. So the first kind of conflict resolution topic that we're going to talk about here is an emotion that we experience that actually, ironically, is a conflict resolution emotion. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about the logic of fighting. So who wins a fight? In general. What's that?
Bigger people.
Bigger people. What else?
More muscle.
More muscles, yeah.
Stronger.
Stronger.
People who have weapons.
People who have weapons. What does that mean? What kind of weapons?
They can be people with arms and teeth and
Yeah, not just
big-
arms, but guns that they use with their arms. Yeah.
People who know kung fu.
People who know kung fu.
I was going to say skills, but that kind of covers it.
Skills. People who are skilled. People who have strategy. Okay, all of these things, although often we think of big and strong, when we think about conflict, this idea of formidability really translates into the ability to impose something costly on the other person. Does that make sense? So if we think about the categories of the ability to impose costs, the formidability, it should make sense that whoever can impose more costs on the other will win the fight. Does that make sense? Because the other person will be like, you know what? This person is going to be more costly. So what are the categories of costs for human beings? Well, we've already named a couple. Big and strong, right? This is Lou Ferrigno. If Lou Ferrigno and I were sitting and there was a veggie burger, right, on the table, and I was hungry and I could see that Lou Ferrigno was hungry, what do you think I would do? Would I grab the sandwich?
I don't think you need a veggie burger.
Right. I mean, who would win the conflict? Would there even be a conflict? Why not? I have a brain that would avoid the conflict, right? Because I do a quick calculation and I say, he can impose more costs on me than I can impose on him. Does that make sense? All right. Great. You guys have named a couple of the categories. Yeah.
But if you had strategy, wouldn't that like give it?
Okay, what could change the scenario such that I actually take the veggie burger, I take the sandwich?
Yeah, because I mean,
You're faster than he is.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'm faster or I have some strategy. We'll get there in a second, yeah.
You could talk him into thinking it was his idea to give it to you.
All right. It's my sandwich. No, it's mine. It's mine. It's mine. It's yours. It's yours. Oh, okay, it's mine. We've all seen that with kids. All right. What other human scenario could change the situation such that I feel confident that he can't hurt me? I mean, think about it. If Lou Ferrigno was in this room and we had some conflict, who do you think would win, me or him? Why? Yeah, Miguel. You got my back. Who else has my back? Woo! All right. Now, it's not simply size and strength that determines the result of conflict. We also have stuff like these guys, right? The Sopranos. If Tony Soprano wants a hamburger, and I have it, what am I going to do? Yeah, how come? Is it about him being big and strong?
no.
No, not really. But because of his
Power.
where does his power come from?
Other people.
His network.
His networks, social networks, right? This idea, I mean, the idea on Facebook is like, you know, power comes from social networks. That's the way it works in people as well. The fact that we have people that have our back allows us to have more power to win at fights. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And finally, the third category that you guys were talking about, the skills and experience category, yada yada. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so a lot of fights are avoided simply because people calculate, all right, what are the costs that someone can impose on me versus how much can I impose on them, and people avoid irrational behavior. Does that make sense? This is just part of our human architecture. What else? Is it only the ability to impose costs? Another idea is how much are people willing to fight over something? So this is what we call relative resource value. How much would you guys be willing to fight over this bag? Who wants it a lot? I'm telling you, it's an old movie. It's out of style. I know, I need to change my slides. It's out, it's last season's Louis Vuitton bag. All right, an example closer to my personal preferences. Who would be willing to fight over this bike?
Depends who.
Okay. Who wants it more? Who's going to win the fight, in a sense, is
The person who wants it more.
why?
Because then they're gonna try so much to do it.
They're going to try harder. And so if you and me are fighting over the bike, and I punch you in the face, and then you punch me in the face, and I'm like, it's my bike, and I punch you, and you punch me. If you wanted, let's say, 30 arbitrary units, and I only wanted 15, I'm going to take 15 punches in the face and realize, wait a second, I took 15 punches in the face, something that I only wanted 15 amount. I'm going to stop fighting because this doesn't make sense anymore, whereas you will still keep fighting for longer, and therefore you should get it. So if I can calculate who wants the ice cream sundae more, I can think about what you are going to do based on how much you want that thing. I can calculate who's going to win the fight and therefore avoid the fight where somebody wants it more than me. Yeah.
Well, what about like ego? Like a lot of times, like someone will get into a fight over something stupid and will go way over. Like
Totally. We're going to get there in like 17 minutes. we're going to get to ego. I mean, we could talk about it right now. When people get, there's some famous, describe a police officer in one of their books called Homicide. They describe a police officer who says, most fights start over nothing at all. He's a Texan police officer. He says, a 10-cent record at a jukebox or an insult, and all of a sudden, next thing somebody gets shot, right? Why is it that people fight so much for something that looks like it's not that valuable, i.e., a record, like who gets to choose which record is playing, or
Because they want to show people that they're strong.
Yeah. Maybe they just want to show people. What we call ego is, in a sense, kind of a demonstration. It's a little bit of a longer conversation, but we'll get back to it. All right. So the idea here is if you know the two sides of the equation, that is to say, if you calculate how formidable am I versus how valuable is the resource to me, right? If you multiply these things, and you compare them to how much the other person's formidability is, how much cost they can impose on you, versus how much they want the thing, then you can calculate who's going to win the fight. Does that make sense? Right? Whoever's going to win the fight is whoever is bigger, stronger, has more friends, multiplied times whoever wants it more. Does that make sense? All right. Now, what happens to you if you feel like you should win the fight because you are, like, let's do a little thought experiment. You're the boss at a big company, and you come in to your office, and a janitor is sitting at your desk with their feet up on your desk. How do you feel?
Angry.
Okay. And you say, "Excuse me, could you please leave my office?" And they say, "No, actually, I'm just going to sit here for a while. I have a few phone calls to make. Why don't you come back later?" How do you feel?
Angry.
Why?
Because he's disrespecting me.
Okay. And who should win this fight between why?
Because I don't like people to disrespect me.
All right. All right. So you find this thing very valuable. All right. Why else should you win the fight?
Well, you worked for your status, what you have, so you're up on the upper echelon compared to janitors.
Okay. Who's the boss? Besides Tony Danza? You are, right? So, what is your formidability compared to their formidability?
Well, you need to know what the janitor's formidability is.
Think about it. Who can impose more costs on the other person?
Boss.
The boss, right? So your formidability is higher. Who needs the desk more, you or the janitor? In a sense, right? This is your desk. Does that make sense? So in your brain should be triggered something that leads you to think, wait a second, I should win this fight, and yet they're not giving it to me. And so we have a mechanism that, in a sense, communicates when this happens, and that's the anger mechanism. That's what the function of anger is, right? And it looks like that, and that, and that, and that. Okay. So we have cross-species rules for displaying anger, and they kind of make sense. What's the grammar here? What's the logic of this? What are people doing in their display of anger?
Teeth.
Showing teeth. Why show your teeth?
They're displaying their formidability.
You're displaying basically, look, if you don't give me what I want, this is what's going to happen to you. Does that make sense? So in the idea of conflict, basically we see conflict when two people come into a resource that they both desire, that neither thinks that they're going to lose the conflict. Does that make sense? Both people think that their formidability. And the function of anger is designed to alter the perception of the other person's equation. That is to say, when you get angry, you're trying to alter people's mind to demonstrate, look, this fight is not worth getting into. You should just give me the resource in question. And so we see arguments that are tackling each of these. So if you get into an argument, what kind of things might you say to try and demonstrate to people that you're highly formidable? In a sense, anger is a conflict resolution strategy.
You could threaten them, or things that would show how much the thing values.
Yeah.
is
No. Well,
valued to you.
let's say if you wanted to focus on demonstrating how formidable you are, what kind of things could you say? Like, let's think about things that people actually say.
In that case, I'm the boss.
I am the boss. I am the boss here. Do you want to get fired?
Yeah, you make him feel so low.
All right. What other like in a real conflict?
Snap the table, have a gun.
Ah. How about two people on the street meeting over a hamburger? Is it my hamburger? No, my hamburger. It's my hamburger. What's the next thing that you hear them say?
You don't give me that hamburger.
Yeah, you don't give me the hamburger.
I will do something you will regret.
I will do something.
You will be happy.
I will turn you into hamburger. I will make sure you never work in this town again. Dude, I will kick your ass. Do you know who I am? What's this meant to convey?
Status, power.
I am powerful. I am highly formidable. Do you even know who I am? I don't know about you guys, but living in LA, I hear this all the time. A lot of people who think that their power is extremely high in their ability to impose costs. Do you even know who I am? Do you know who you're speaking to right now? Yeah.
I was listening to a conversation the other day between two people I was sitting with, and they were talking about people coming in conflict with each other.
Yeah.
And one of them was saying that the best way to display your formidability and value of self, or how much the thing is valued to you, is, you know, by staying very stoic and quiet. So, you know, he was saying, the one guy was saying, oh, you know, if someone's getting in my face, I don't say anything and I just stare at them. So that's funny how that
Mad dogging.
Yeah, that could alter someone's perception of you because, yeah, they get confused.
In a sense, yeah, mad dogging is a form of displaying what exactly? Yeah.
That they're making themselves look big, and you're kind of like, yeah, I'm not intimidated.
Yeah, you don't mad dog someone like this. You mad dog someone like this. Right? What's that about when you make your body larger? This exists all across the animal species.
Hairs stand up.
Yeah. Cats, when they get into a fight, what do? Their hair stands up. Pufferfish also. I mean, this exists across many different species. Okay, what other kinds of arguments that do you hear? People say things like, you don't understand, man. I need this, right? Ultimately, what are they trying to do? Communicate, look, I value this extremely highly. Don't get into a fight with me because I'm crazy, yo. Right? In a sense, the value, I don't care. Am I running out of time?
No.
Right? I don't care. The value of this thing is so large, I will incur all the costs in the universe. What else do people say? Dude, you are nothing. You are a little worm. What are they saying? Your ability to impose costs on me are negligible. You can't do anything. Finally, come on, you don't even like cookies, right? Don't get into this fight. You don't even want this. The value of this resource is minuscule. Yeah, Tina?
Oh, I was going to say, I see students, the self, I need this.
Yes.
Especially with grades.
Oh yeah. As a professor, I experience this one. Like, come on, it would be such a small thing. You can just change the grade. I mean, come on. The value of the grade to you is tiny, and to me, I need this, right? Ultimately, a good way to think about this is all of these exist in conflict, but the idea is that we are an interesting species, that when we come into conflict, we have creative ways to solve those conflicts in non-total mutual annihilation strategies. Does that make sense? We very seldom come into conflict such that we're actually trying to kill someone or someone's trying to kill us. In a sense, we have this, the argument is we have this equation somewhere in our brain and we use it to avoid a lot of conflicts. Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah, so when a student, when he tells you that he needs a high grade,
yeah,
why would you explain that he didn't get a good one to begin with if he needs it so much?
Well, that's a good counter argument. Well, if you needed the grade so much, then why didn't you study harder? Right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's a logical response, but the idea here is like when they're saying, or when you're saying, look, I really need this, right? you don't understand, this is the key to my future, you're basically arguing, look, I'm willing to stand here in your office and make life hard for you for a long time. Does that make sense? So it is in a sense. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. What I'd like to do is to get you guys to pair up. There we go. Think about a recent conflict. Let's get into groups of 4. Someone will have a good story of a conflict that they got into recently. And ask these questions. What were the resource or resources in question? And does this framework help make sense of what happened? Does that make sense? So let's get into groups of 4. Go ahead. Now you can put people you know or don't know. Let's talk about a conflict. What were the resources in question?